Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I'm going to give you a debrief on how I recently sold one of my Rolex watches. It was the first time I'd embarked upon such an endeavour to sell a treasured Rolex watch which has been with me for a number of years. But the moment finally arrived when it had to happen. It was always going to happen one day because I wanted to buy something else. And in fact, the watch which replaced my Explorer is on my wrist now. It is my Cartier Santos Medium, which I'm absolutely enjoying, by the way, but that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about the fact that there comes a point in everybody's horological journey where, unless you're very wealthy, you're going to have to make space and realize some funds on an existing watch which allows you to buy something else, to go forwards with your collection. And that's kind of where I was exactly with this. I decided I wanted something new, and my least worn watch was the one that had to go to make room and, quite frankly, to make some money for me, or to free up some money so that I could get on with it. Now the fact is, I found this to be a very daunting experience because, you know, you get the idea. It's all very well having these things which people say they're, you know, an ironclad investment. Your Rolex watch is as good as gold. It'll never decrease in value. It's always going to, you know, turn a good a return for you when the time comes to selling it. Well, when that day actually comes, as I say, it's a daunting experience. I'm going to talk you through the tips that I learned actually on my selling experience. And I'll also give you a little story of an adventure which I undertook while selling my watch. And I'll tell you exactly how much I got for my watch at the end too. Now the first step that I would say is essential on your watch selling journey, whether it's a Rolex or anything else, is to actually get a realistic understanding of how much your watch is really worth. Because if, like me, you watch YouTube videos quite extensively, you're exposed to the wider social media world. You know, we've been hit by this juggernaut of the brand of Rolex for probably getting on for 10 years or so now. I mean, they've always been around, but they have really ascended to this, you know, real pinnacle of the pyramid of the watch world, maybe in the last decade. And you start to get this idea that, well, if I buy a Rolex, it's money well spent. It's always going to be there when I need it. I can sell it, I can get that money back. The fact is, folks, you need to give yourself a bit of a reality check. For a small number of highly desirable Rolex watches, that is the case, all right? They do return their funds quite well. I mean, it's fair to say Rolex probably returns more of the initial investment than any other watch which is currently available in the modern market, but by no means are they some sort of investment panacea. That's not the case at all. So my tip for you, first of all, is do some research. Understand how much your watch is worth. Look at all the available data, which is, you know, openly available to you, which helps you get into a real mindset of how much you're likely to get back on your watch. Also, you need to be really aware. Now, I'm talking about a Rolex today, my Rolex Explorer. It's my 124270 36mm stainless steel Rolex Explorer, which was the model which I let go. So to find out as much as I could about that, I did a bit of a deep dive in all of the material that was available to me. The first thing I became aware, Rolex prices are definitely very much on the slide. You know, it's a double figure reduction in the last 12 months. I say double figures, I think it's like 10% over prices the year before, and it's going down and it's going down and it's going down. And it's likely to continue that slide because there was an artificially created blip in the market during the pandemic when people had maybe more money than they'd had for a while, and they were looking to, you know, spend that money on somewhat more frivolous things. And for gentlemen, wristwatches was top of the list. So many men went out and bought Rolex watches, pushed the prices sky high. Certain models became super desirable. The Rolex brand is splashed everywhere. Everybody wants one, climbing over their grandmothers to buy one. But that's all changed, right? The flow of watches is increasing. They're much more available than they have been for a long time. unless you're after one of those very few highly desirable models. So my advice, get out there, find out how much your watch is worth in the modern market. So the places I went to find that out, went to eBay, all right, because I was thinking that's an area where I could sell the watch. I went onto eBay. Be very careful though, make sure you check when you're looking at watches, check the boxes which are sold and completed, so you get an idea of what they have actually sold for, not what people are asking for them. So you get a bit more of a realistic idea there. Then you can go on to the many retailing online sites like Chrono24, places like that. I went on there, did a bit of a deep dive, a search, looking at watches like mine, how much were they selling for and so on. And it gives you a real idea, so that again you're starting to get a realistic viewpoint of how much your watch is worth. There are lots of other online resources. There's a website called Watch Stats, which I went on, and it shows you, the watch market plunging. It gives you market prices. But what you have to remember, of course, is that the prices you're looking at on sort of retail data sites like that is that it is retail, right? It's not the average casual seller like you and I. Might give you a market value, but that does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that is what your watch is worth if you're trying to sell it. So keep all of these things in your mind. So my journey begins thinking about, I've bought my new watch, all right, so I did it the wrong way around really. I bought the watch first and then realized I want to sell something to make room in my collection to go forwards with a much more reasonable size collection. But also, I really need the funds. I wanted the money tied up in that watch to help pay for this one. Didn't cover it by any means, but it's a big help. So my journey begins looking locally. So in my town, there's a jewellery store which often have pre-owned Rolex watches and other watches in the window. And they often quite strong prices on them as well. They sort of go in hard at their pricing. So I rang these guys up and said, look, I explained the watch I had, Rolex Explorer 124270, stainless steel, owned for 3 years, bought in a local authorized dealer. I'm the only owner. It's pretty much in fantastic condition. Although I've owned it for 3 years, it's my least worn watch from a collection. So, it didn't really get a hard life. And the guy flatly said to me, not interested. You are going to want too much money for that watch. I'm not going to pay anywhere near the number that you've got in your mind, because he already realized I'm talking about references for my watch. I quoted the reference number. He says, I can tell you're a guy who knows your watches. I am not going to insult you by giving you the price that I need to give you for me to make money on the watch. So he blankly closed the door on me. So I ruled that out for a start. And it was quite an eye-opener, because I thought, if he offers me somewhere around, and this is the number I had in my mind, I was looking for something near to what I paid for it. I'm not looking to make money on this watch. In fact, after doing my research, I kind of accept I might make a little loss. But if I can keep that loss to £100 or £200, I'll be very, very happy. I'll tell you now, I paid for the watch £5,150 in 2021, 3 years ago. So I'm looking for 5,000-ish, all right? That's the ballpark I'm in. So after speaking to that local jeweler, I then start thinking what else is available to me. First of all, Facebook Marketplace, right? It's a very commonly turned to area for people selling things in life. And I thought, well, I know they sell watches on there. Let's go and have a look. Fact is, within a few minutes, I realized this is not going to be the place for me. Most of the items on there, although they do sell watches of high value, it just didn't have the all-encompassing, safe, protected feel that I was looking for. It felt a bit amateurish, and it felt like somewhere I'd probably be happy venturing a few £100, but not a few £1,000. So I ruled that one out. Next up, Chrono24. Now, Chrono24 I like the look of, I gotta say. Obviously, they're an online retailer, and basically, there's two ways that you can utilize their services. You can either sell your watch over Chrono24. Now, I'm using Chrono24 as an example. I know there are other online watch retailers very similar, but I explored Chrono24 because they were the name most commonly known to me. So you can sell your watch through their site. Basically using them, you're a customer of their platform. And when the watch sells, you agree to give them 6.3% commission. All right, so you know, that's quite a chunk really. The other way they can do it is kind of on consignment. You agree a price, they sell it, and then you get the agreed amount of money at the sale of the watch. Anything above and beyond that, that's their money, all right? So if they sell it for £1,000 more than you've agreed, they keep that £1,000. Okay, I like the idea of it. It's quite safe. There is a certification program involved on Chrono 24. So if you're buying, it certainly makes you feel much more confident the piece you're getting is a real item. From the selling point of view, not quite so valuable, but certainly from a negative point of view, it feels a little bit out of your control and you're going to get less money at the end. eBay is the next route that I chanced upon. This would have been the one which I most likely would have gone down had I not done a bit more exploration. eBay, basically, they've got a great safety record there. Because of the vast size of eBay, you've got this all-encompassing global company. They've got this authentication program. So, you know, your watch goes in for authentication, it's checked. You, as a seller, as a buyer, you know you're getting exactly what you think you're getting, but there's a price to pay for that. So you're obviously paying a fee for all of that. So it does make you feel a lot more confident using eBay simply because of its vast size, the corporate entity that it is. It gives me confidence. That's the route I was going to take. However, I actually ended up selling my watch through Watchfinder. Now, that was not really a site or a brand or an entity that I've ever bothered with much before, but I heard about somebody else selling their watch to Watchfinder. It was Andy from the English Watch YouTube channel. He sold a Rolex Submariner to them a little while ago, and he was quite positive about his interaction. So I thought, I'm looking at all these options, I'll give them a go. So basically, I went on their website, and I have to say, I'm not affiliated to Watchfinder at all in any way, shape or form. I was merely a customer, and I'm giving you now a review of my experience. They don't know I'm doing this, all right? So I go on their website, and sure enough, there's an online quoting system you enter into. So basically, you put down the details of your watch, push the button, and you ask for a quote. Quite simple, quite straightforward, took just a few moments. As long as you know sort of the basic details of your watch, that's enough for them to get started. And basically what happened within a very short period of time, within about an hour I think it was, in my occasion, I got an email back giving me a sort of projected quote. I say projected because they haven't seen the watch. All they know is the basic ideas. Now, at this point, I quite like the number. I'll tell you what the number is that they gave me later, but I quite like the number. It was close to where I wanted to be. So I think, okay, I go away, have a little think about it, and I think, yep, I am happy with that. I am happy. It's not as much as I was hoping for, but I think the little knock that I'm going to take financially is enough to dispel my worries about a lot of, buying, selling, shipping money, shipping watches. I'm not comfortable with all that. I don't do that as a matter of course. If somebody else is prepared to make that easier for me, I'm happy to pay a little bit of money for it. So I agree to the number that Watchfinder has initially emailed me. Now, to confirm that quote, they need to see your watch. Your watch is going to be examined by their watchmakers to confirm it's really, in my case, a Rolex Explorer. And when that's the case, well, I'll tell you how we come to that now. So the way they do that, you can either take your watch to one of their boutiques, and there are a number of them here in the UK, or you can do it via post. Initially, I opted for the postal route. So a day or so later, after saying, yep, I'll go for the number, send me the home kit that they say they're going to sell you to send your watch. This thing arrives in the post, and it's basically a plastic bag with some green end pieces to stick on the edges of your box, and a pre-printed address label. It didn't feel safe to me at all. I wasn't confident putting my £5,000 watch in a plastic bag with these little sort of polystyrene end protectors, taping it up and putting it into the Royal Mail. Now, that's no aspersions on the Royal Mail. I'm sure it would have got to where it was meant to go. But for me, it didn't feel comfortable. I rang them up and I told them so. I gave them immediate feedback that I wasn't comfortable using their home postal system, and I said I'd rather bring it in person. So I drove it to the nearest boutique to my home. And there's a story behind that, but I'll tell you that at the end. And I took my watch into Bicester Village, which was the boutique nearest to me, had a chat with the guys in there. They gave me the receipt necessary, and then they explained to me that my watch was going to go away, be looked at by the watchmaker, and then they'll confirm the quote or revise the quote depending on what they see. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Off I go to wait for my email, which they tell me can take up to 14 days. And I'll tell you a little story and then I'll tell you how it ends. On my way to take this Rolex Explorer to the to Watchfinder's boutique in Bicester Village, I realised I was going to be driving past, this is a part of the country I don't regularly go to, I realised I would be driving past a place called Sevenhampton, which is the last resting place of a certain gentleman called Ian Fleming. Now, of course, Ian Fleming is the creator of the most fictional, well-dressed man in the world, James Bond. And I decide I'm going to make a little detour and call in and just pay my respects to Ian Fleming. I found his grave with a little bit of trouble. Gentleman from the village helped me on my journey to finding his grave. But sure enough, in this small little, really rural country graveyard in a disused church today, I believe it is, there was Ian Fleming's tombstone with his family. His wife and his son are buried there also. And I realised that, of course, at that time I was wearing my Rolex Explorer, a watch which is very closely associated with Ian Fleming, because Fleming throughout his life always wore a Rolex Explorer. And of course, you know, when he wrote the Bond books, he made reference to the fact that James Bond wore a Rolex. He never said which model, he just used the word Rolex. And people have always sort of had in their mind it was a Rolex Submariner, because that's the watch which was worn by Sean Connery in the early Bond films. But in reality, it was most likely an Explorer, because, as most of us know, Ian Fleming based the Bond character partially on himself, partially on other people who he encountered in life. And when he wrote Rolex, he probably meant the watch that was on his own wrist. So we can hypothesize that James Bond actually, the watch which he should have been wearing in the movies, was an Explorer. And there I was next to the father of James Bond wearing the watch that he wore. So I had a little moment to, you know, pass on my regards to Ian Fleming, and the watch visited sort of one of the more famous owners before taking it up to, well, to it leaving me basically at Watchfinder. So I went home, and a few days later, maybe about 5 or 6 days later, I received an email from Watchfinder. Very slight revision of £10 less than they'd originally quoted me. My watch was probably a little more scratched than they imagined. And the number they quoted me was £4,965. So within the £200 of what I was aiming to realise on that Explorer. So I took the quote. If I'd said, no, that's not enough, I want the watch back, they would have couriered the watch to me at home. But I was happy with that number. I said, thank you very much. And within 24 hours, those funds were wired into my bank account, making me a very happy customer, because I didn't have any hassle of having to negotiate with people, put my watch on online forums, taking photographs, going on eBay, sending it off again, you know, maybe it not falling through, having to ship it to somebody, maybe in another country. I'm quite happy to take a sting of £100, £200 just to allow that to happen. The thing that I hadn't really counted on was the emotions that I felt when I was letting that watch go. Because even though I hardly ever wore the watch, it was a watch which did mean quite a lot to me. I did like that little Explorer, and I realised I'm never going to own another one really, because now they're 6,000 and something pounds. I would never pay that for a watch like the Explorer, at the way that my mind is, you know, because if I paid £5,000 for one 3 years ago, it would be a huge stretch to pay 6,000 or 7,000 in the future. So I'm never going to own that watch again in all reality. I'm pleased with the watch I got. It takes the sting away, knowing that I traded that watch in for something different on my horological journey, and I'm very comfortable with that. But it was a bit emotional. I mean, I'm not talking tears or anything, but I felt a sense of tangible loss. But there we go. That was my journey anyway. A positive one for me. I found a sort of avenue that I would take again if I had to sell a Rolex. And I'm only saying Watchfinder, in my experience, worked out well for me. For you, it might be something totally different. But if you are thinking about selling a luxury watch, Just, really do the research, be realistic about its price, and then also look at what's the best avenue for you when it comes to disposing of it. What feels safer, what's the easiest with your experience level. So there we go, folks. I hope you've enjoyed that journey to leaving one of my favorite watches and moving towards something different. If you have, give this video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like this, click the subscribe button. You can practically support the channel by leaving me a comment, dropping me an email. You can buy me a coffee, it's a one-off tip, or you can become a patron, and I make extra videos for my patrons every week, and you can find out how to get involved with that in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care, and I will see you again very soon.